I'm sorry, you couldn't have Coastal Enterprises, Inc. administer the New Markets Program. Excuse me one second, do we need to switch anything? Because I'm just worried about that, so just keep going.
Yep.
Okay. Why did you have to create CEI Capital Management, that for-profit, explain the for-profit
Sure.
subsidiary of a nonprofit?
Okay, so CEI is a traditional nonprofit charitable organization. Again, purposes are to raise capital and invest, and so it might seem counterintuitive. Well, what are you doing making investments and making earnings and so forth? Is that really what a charitable organization does? And in our case, yes it is. And it's all approved by the IRS because we're doing that for charitable purposes. We're creating jobs, we're targeting to underserved populations and regions and so forth. So there is public benefit to the work we're doing. Now, for the New Markets Tax Credit, we needed to set up an actual specialized subsidiary that could handle this particular kind of transaction. So there's an organizational reason to do that. We're still carrying through our charitable purposes, but for purposes of accounting and segregating the activity and staffing of this particular complex credit transaction, we needed to set up a subsidiary. There are also some legal issues of liability and so forth that go along with it, but from our standpoint, it's the specialized purpose of a subsidiary that is very important. So CEI functions like a holding company now. I mean, very much of a private sector model. We have venture capital subsidiaries.
Sorry.
We have venture capital subsidiaries, we have affordable housing subsidiaries and partnerships, we have a subsidiary for high net worth individuals to purchase notes from us so we can use their funds for investments. So subsidiaries are a specialized model on how we conduct our business.
Who are some important people, partners, to keep the New Markets Program alive? Because we just went through, of course, the fiscal cliff.
Right.
What's going to happen?
Right.
Who do you count on?
In terms of the partners for the New Markets Tax Credit Program, it's just incredible the number and range of people that and stakeholders that care about this particular economic development tool of the United States government. I should say that if people are familiar with the low-income housing tax credit, the New Markets Tax Credit Program really historically is an analog to the housing tax credit for, and rather for housing, but for economic development. The partners start with the actual beneficiaries. The businesses and projects that have been financed are incredible voices to this and have weighed in, so to speak, with our own delegation to support the ongoing appropriations and authorization of the credit. Clearly, banks, both large banks, nationally like Bank of America or U.S. Capital Bank, all the way to community banks, right here in Maine, TD Bank or Bangor Savings, are essential partners to this. And you then go down the list to indeed the syndicators of the tax credit, the sophisticated people who are used to doing this sort of market. So you go all the way from community and the project beneficiary to the actual investment networks that go on. And then finally, the biggest, I think, achievement for partnerships under this program has been the array of organizations throughout the country that have come together as a coalition called the New Markets Tax Credit Coalition to, in effect, keep the credit before Congress, meet with our senators and our representatives, explain all the stories and impact it's having in their districts, and educate the American people all the way through as to what the value and impact of this credit has been and is being. We're okay, I think.
Okay. Another question, and I meant to ask it before when you were talking about, this boots on the ground and why you like to be here. And one of the differentiators about your administrating the New Market Tax Credit is the focus on rural. You're not purposefully urban. And how is that because you started in Maine and it just was the way it fell together? Was it by focus? How did that happen?
Well, let's think about rural for a minute and rural America. Maine is essentially a rural state. Now, it does have what they call metro or urban-like areas and non-metro and so forth. But generally, people who live and work in Maine think of Maine largely as a rural state in very small communities. CEI's origins were in the natural resource industry sectors of fish, farms, and forests, and we're still very much involved with that. We diversified over the years into general manufacturing, obviously affordable housing, and community facilities. But rural has been our signature, our focus in this state. And as we extend it outward into other parts of New England and now nationally with our subsidiary, CEI Capital Management, we've maintained a focus on rural. Let me give you an example. There's something like, of why, there's something like 20% of the American population, these figures can vary, but live in non-metro communities. These are rural areas that often lack the access to capital or other resources to basically live and work and sustain their operations. Job creation becomes very important. When you get to the federal government, oftentimes you find that a lot of the programs are biased to urban areas. So we learned early on to advocate for rural resources. With the New Markets Tax Credit Program, we actually were able to get our Senator Snowe, who has been a great supporter of the program and sponsor throughout the decade, by the way, for this, to carry this program, to get legislation passed in the statute that would require 20% of the cash be invested in rural America. When you look at the foundation